Hello, my name is Mark Aulisio, and I'm the Susan E. Watson Professor and Chair of the Department of Bioethics at Case Western Reserve University and the Director of the Metro Health Systems Center for Biomedical Ethics. My doctorate is in applied philosophy, and I've spent my career, over 25 years now, doing clinical bioethics. Today, I'm going to talk about the traditional philosophical concept of personal identity, which has heavily influenced how we think about ourselves here in the U.S. This concept is threatened to the core by dementia. I will then share my perspective of my grandma's life and her last years during which she had advanced dementia, and offer some reflections on what Grandma Aulisio's story might mean for how we should think about ourselves in the context of dementia. A word of caution, this talk is deliberately positive. Grandma's story and what it can teach us is just one story, even in my own family, but in my opinion, one that is less often told. Okay, so what is traditionally meant by personal identity, and what questions does this raise? There are, of course, many questions raised by the concept of personal identity. We'll briefly consider three. What is a person? What makes this person Mark and not some other person? And how do specific persons persist through time, such that, for example, I can say, I'm the same person that graduated from Elyria Catholic in 1983. We humans have spent a lot of time trying to identify what makes us different from other animals and equating that with being a person. As you can see, there's a common feature in each of these definitions spanning over 2,000 years. Rationality. That humans are intelligent, able to think, reason, and reflect has traditionally been taken to be the mark of persons and what distinguishes us from all other animals. It should be noted that recent work in primatology and other areas has dramatically improved our understanding of the intelligence of other animals, raising doubts as to whether even these features are unique to us humans. So we have a sense of the traditional definition of person. But what makes this person and not some other person? And how is this person now connected to that same person in the past then? Locke, in this passage, for all its verbosity, basically says that consciousness, memory, psychological continuity make this person now, who is also connected to that same person in the past then. Notice how this very traditional philosophical idea of personal identity is entirely focused on cognitive abilities like rationality, consciousness, and memory. Dementia, as we know, threatens all of this. With dementia, mental capabilities like the ability to reason seem to decline or disappear altogether. Continuity of experience and memory fragment. Even consciousness itself can wax and wane. With advanced dementia, it's not uncommon for people to fail to recognize their spouses, children, or longtime friends and acquaintances. Does dementia then ultimately destroy personal identity? Are those with dementia at some point no longer even persons? Now I am going to share my perspective of my grandma's life and her final years living with dementia, and offer some reflections based on this for how we might think differently about ourselves, personal identity, even personhood in the context of dementia. Albert Einstein is said to have once asked Sigmund Freud, "What matters?" To which Freud is said to have responded, "Love and work, work and love, that's all there is." Grandma Aulisio had more than her share of work and a whole lot of love. Grandma Aulisio, Adela Yersick, was born to Polish immigrants in Uniontown, PA in 1923. When she was just 25 years old and already a mother of five, 4 sons and 1 daughter, her husband Anthony was crushed between 2 railroad cars while working and killed. Adela moved to Elyria shortly after her husband's death to be with her 3 sisters who lived in the area, taking a job as a cashier at a local grocery store to support her 5 children. As for Freud's love and work, she worked hard to support and raise her children while also dealing with other challenges. A devout Catholic, Grandma went to daily Mass, prayed the Rosary, did many novenas, First Friday devotions, and more. Her faith sustained her through the death of her husband. She would rely on it again when her daughter Teresa suffered a traumatic brain injury, from which Grandma said she miraculously recovered, and again when she would welcome her younger sister, Anne, into her house in 1955, as Anne fled a difficult marriage. Anne and Adela would then live together until they each required nursing home care a few years before they died. On Grandma Aulisio's 39th birthday and my parents' wedding day, my dad Paul is pictured with Grandma the day of his high school graduation in 1962. Grandma's youngest, Tony, suffered a spinal cord injury playing football for O'Leary Catholic High School. Grandma would take care of Uncle Tony until he died 46 years later at the age of 61. More tragedy, more work, but also more love. Born in 1965, I only knew Grandma, Uncle Tony, and Aunt Ann as a trio together, as they were until Uncle Tony died in 2008. Grandma Aulisio's small bungalow, with a room added on in the back for Uncle Tony, was the setting of so many family celebrations, none more anticipated by her 17 grandchildren each year than Christmas Eve. I remember my dad and uncles telling Grandma not to spend so much on us year after year. "Ma, you don't have to do this." To which Grandma would say, "I know, the only thing I have to do is die and pay taxes," usually followed by, "and you can't take it with you." Grandma loved to shop for her grandkids. I have no doubt that that love was part of her motivation to go to work each day. Love and work, work and love. As the years went by, Grandma was forced into early retirement when new management at her grocery store deliberately scheduled her for hours that made it impossible for her to care for Uncle Tony. Despite the viciousness, it might have been for the best, as Grandma was able to spend more time with her grandkids and, very soon, great-grandkids, only a small number of which are pictured here. Over time, it became clear that Aunt Ann and then Grandma could no longer live independently. Aunt Ann would sometimes wander away from the house and get lost. Grandma would leave the oven on or forget to lock the doors. As Aunt Ann's dementia became more pronounced, she also seemed to become more and more troubled, burdened with crying fits and ever-deepening depression. Grandma went down a different path. It was the path of affability, contentedness, and apparent happiness in the moment. My last memories of Grandma are of her at Wesleyan Village in Elyria, playing with baby dolls and coloring. She was happy, especially when she would see one of her great-grandkids, who she wouldn't recognize. Commenting on their hair or clothes or youthfulness, she seemed to love each baby doll, each great-grandkid, living each moment only in the immediate present. By then, there seemed to be no rationality, only present consciousness, and no memory, continuity of experience, or psychological connectedness to speak of. Yet, there she was, happy, almost as if in love. The traditional concept of personal identity is just about what one would expect from academics, especially those trained in philosophy like me. Hypercognitive and tied to privileged types of mental functioning. These things, while of course important, are only a part of who we are. Change to personal identity and the sense of self is constant. Poets know this, and they also know that aging is not all bad. As the great Bob Dylan put it, "I was so much older then, I'm younger than that now." Our amazing colleagues in biomedical engineering here at CWRU tell us that patients who suffer paralysis, like my Uncle Tony, or limb loss, hope for the restoration of function, but much more so long for restoration of touch, of sensation. It is the human touch, a sense of connectedness, to love and be loved, that we most long for. Maybe we should think of love as at the center of personal identity, of personhood. Maybe love, even more than work, is what matters. And maybe in the end, if we're lucky, love is all we will have left, and maybe it really is all we need.